he says, oh, I know too, I can do it. But the older boy who has autism, he's taking trial after trial. Now he's doing it on his own, but he still needs a prompt first. He just has a physical prompt. What's great about ABA, and specifically ABA verbal behavior, is as long as I have what all of those kids want in that box, and as long as they can't find anything else they want to do away from the box, I have all their attention. I can teach multiple kids with one teacher. I was invited down to Buenos Aires back in, I think it was 2008. Some people who ran a school there had found my book, and they built their school based upon the approach that I outlined in the book. And when I got down there to speak at their conference, they brought me to the school to show me what they were doing. And I went into a classroom, and there really wasn't anything in the classroom. It was just like this bare room, and there was a table in the middle of the class, and there was chairs all the way around it. And the kids all came running into the room when they sat down in the chairs. No one even had to tell them to do it. And the teacher walked in and she had a box like this, filled with these types of stimulating, reinforcing toys. She popped it open, she dumped it on the table, and all the kids grabbed something and started playing. And then she went around one by one and said, okay, give me your toy. And then she started giving him directions as to what that child's learning goals were. And reinforced by giving the toy back on a variable ratio that they were capable of. 2, 3, 4 responses, and they got the toy back. Then they went to the next kid. Hey, give me your toy, do this, do that. This child was on a variable ratio of 8, so they did 7 or 8 instructions and gave it back. And then went to the next one. If a child had a fight about a toy, or tried to get up with the toy, they stopped, they went over, they took the toy back, turned his chair, put it away on the table. And then the child was left in the room with nothing to do, and continued to work with the other kids. And the child would eventually come back over, apologize, or try to sit, or do whatever they were supposed to do. We'd get their chair back, and then that's how we taught. That was one of the concepts, that's how we taught. And it's basically 7 steps. So when you have this working, you can do a lot as a teacher. It doesn't need to be one-to-one all the time. So one thing we found in the first several months was that he was making a lot of progress on imitation, on managing, but the one area he wasn't making very much progress was in verbal imitation. He wasn't echoing things people were asking him to echo. I'm trying to be able to make a sign for lifting up. And I'm lifting them up and making it as reinforcing as possible. When we're the most fun thing in the room, everybody wants to participate. Now, this is about 3 weeks later, after those initial consultations, and we're there in the evening. We just happened to stop by because we were in the neighborhood, and they invited us over and we wanted to videotape. And so this is the progress that they've made in about 3 weeks. We did it spontaneously without any prompting at all for the first times. Here's something that's interesting. When his brother got it and he didn't, he starts to get a little frustrated here. And you'll see him start to behave inappropriately. But then he very quickly says, oh, wait a second. I know how to do this. I just have to ask. And what we find in science is that if you can teach a child a technique, if you can teach a child a technique for asking for what they want, you can get rid of 70% or more of inappropriate behaviors. So teaching demanding, teaching a communication system that works is extremely important in learning instructional control. The swinging helps to be bound. So now we're teaching a new sign, Now this is the generalization. This is him making signs for food. He made a sign for bread. Now he's going to ask for syrup. When we first got there, he never sat at the table. He was always just walking around taking whatever he wanted. And now he sits. He's part of the family meal. He asks for the things he wants. This is the speech pathologist who was training with us and working with him. He just asked for the cocoa, for the chocolate milk. Now he asks for the milk. I believe we're at about 8 months in now. And he had made lots of progress in a lot of areas, but he still had not been willing to imitate anything locally for mom and dad. And my wife says, this doesn't make any sense. Because he's really motivated to be with us. He's trying very hard in a lot of things. I would like to see this. And so my wife sits down with him and tries to get him to say, pop, pop, pop. The reason she shows that is because this is something he says a lot, it's a behavior. So we know he can say it. It's just a matter of getting him to say it on command and then reinforcing that. And so this is his first ever verbal imitation. That was it. That was his first one. Now this next video was about 2 to 3 months later, and look at how much changed. Look how quickly he follows instructions. Look how you never see him leaving. You never see him trying to escape. Now he's starting to bring the sounds over to his commands, his requests. Now we're starting to grow the quality of the sound. Now we're getting closer to 2 years. We're at about, I think we're at 18 months, 20 months. She's asking some basic, what is this? Now we're working on the first introvertals. She's saying ready, set, and he's saying go. Instead of echoing. Now we're about 2 years. Where's the hen? Where's the house? Give me the dagger. Anyway, you get the idea. It goes on from here. You get the idea. And lectures. So, that's what we would consider one of our slow moving kids. It was a struggle day in and day out moving forward. But what we see is 2 years later, and you look back to what we had to begin with, and it's a meaningful difference. It's worth it. The value is there because he has a better connection to his brothers and sisters. He has a better connection to his parents. He has good instructional control so that he follows instructions and can actually go to his regular kindergarten instead of a special school because he knows how to follow instructions. He's learned basic language and basic words. He's not conversational. He's still autistic. It's not, we're not going to get rid of that for him, but we've helped him to make his life better. We've given him more skills which gives them more choice, which gives them more opportunity, which I firmly believe gives them a life. And so the effort is worth it, even in our slower moving kids. If you go to our website, you'll see we did a survey of all our families for the first 2 or 3 years working with them. And a large majority of our families would say that their progress in those first 2 years was great to unbelievable, beyond anything they ever imagined. There is a small number of kids that we still have trouble reaching in meaningful way. It's much smaller than it used to be. And I'm assuming that number will be smaller in the future as we continue to get better at what we do. But one thing I know about my own teaching was that learning about ABA, becoming a board certified behavior analyst, was an amazing giant step forward in my ability to support families, to support children with disabilities. However, learning to teach using the verbal behavior approach, learning to prioritize language, to prioritize motivating operation, has taken me to another level, to another step. I'm hopeful that the stuff that I taught you guys today is going to be useful for you. Let's answer a couple of these questions if we can. How does your approach sustain motivation when learning itself is the thing that the student is fatigued by, and the strongest motivator is sleep or being alone? Well, that's part of that is a problem for us, but I would say that part of that problem comes down to how we've been taught in the past. There's not a lot of kids who, when left to their own devices, will lay down and sleep all day long. When they will lay down and be tired or try to sleep or lay by themselves is when that's preferred to what you're getting them to do. Does that make sense? If it's preferred, I'm like that too. If you ask me to come and wash your car, I'm going to be like, oh, you know what, I'm pretty tired, I think I'm just going to stay here, and I'm going to avoid that. However, if you ask me to come to an amusement park or to go to a movie, I'm going to be less likely to choose being tired. I'm going to be more likely to say, okay, let's go do that. The key for these children who have lesser reinforcers or who seem to be okay, kind of relaxing on their own, is making sure that they have access to extremely motivating options and really searching and looking for those things that will be motivating them. A lot of kids prefer to be alone because every time they try to do something they like, you stop them. Oh, no, don't do that. Come over here and play with this car. Vroom, 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 vroom. So then they get out the car and they try to line it up. You say, no, don't line it up. You have to play this way. And then they're like, oh, you know what? I'm getting tired. I don't want to be here. A lot of teaching can lead to that sort of thing. What I would rather be doing is saying, oh, you want to do this? Well, let's do this together. 75% this, 25% interaction. 75% this. Oh, you want to play with cards? Okay, 75% you line them up together and have fun. 25% I give you to do this because I'm hoping that I can make that more fun for you. But as long as 75% of it is doing it the way you want, you'll be more likely to stay with me. I hope that kind of answers the question. Are you answering that one? And this approach we use for patients with cerebral lesions, and you have experience in such cases. By cerebral lesions, are we talking about traumatic brain injury, I'm assuming, or cerebral palsy, or let me be clear about this. ABA is not a method designed for autism. It was never intended to be designed for autism. What ABA was intended to be was a way to study and understand how organisms learn, how people learn. How do we grow, how do we learn, how do we change, how do we develop? The better we understand that, the better we can apply it to whoever's having social issues in their life. I can apply it to a child with autism, I can apply it to a child with cerebral palsy, I can apply it to a child with traumatic brain injuries. Now, things like seizures. We don't know why we're doing it. If we know why we're doing it, then we call it that. If a child demonstrates autistic behavior, but they have Rett syndrome, well then we call it Rett syndrome. It's a diagnosis for when there is no diagnosis, but we see these behaviors. So I personally believe that kids are being diagnosed with autism for lots of different reasons. There may be children who have neurological differences, there may be children with genetic markers, there may be children who have different traumas, there may be children who have had problems with allergic reactions. I don't know what causes any one individual. But I do know that regardless of what gets them into this diagnosis, whether they have it or not, the best teaching method available to us is to understand the principles of behavior and how they affect how we change, how we grow, how we develop, and how we learn. And to apply that to an individual child as comprehensively and as intensively as possible. The only way we're going to find best possible outcomes for most of our kids. I get a question an awful lot about age. Is it ever too late to use ADA? All of the data suggests that the earlier you can start and the more intensive you can do it, the more ultimately valuable it will be, the better the outcome. However, having said that, we all continue to learn throughout our entire lives. And as long as the person you care about has a brain that's intact, that has a connection to the interaction of the world, they can learn. And applied behavior analysis will be as effective for them in the day-to-day teaching. Now, we may be overcoming worse behavior as developed for years. We may be overcoming long periods where they haven't been reinforced with things. So it may be more difficult in some cases. You're also dealing with a stronger kid. So if you're using traditional media and holding them in, she might not be very lucky with that adult. But if you use our approach with the 7 steps, that isn't an issue how old the child is. Because you're just totally reinforcement, you can protect yourself. Let's see if there's anything. So that was dealing with regression. This one is asking about bullying. It's hard to answer this one about bullying because I'm not sure if you mean, the question is what is the functional classification of bullying? And I guess you guys know what I mean by that, by bullying. That's being translated. I wouldn't say that bullying is a classification of language, because every word or words that a bully might use could be classified differently. It could be a demand for attention. It could be wanting your attention. It could be a demand for your lunch money. Right? It could be labeling something like, look, you got some nose, or look, you're fat. These are all different functions of language. If you're asking, so I would say that bullying doesn't fall in any category of language. The individual language itself could be categorized. Now, if you're asking me whether it comes into a function of, is it self-stimulatory, is it attention-based, or is it escape-based, I would have to argue that in most cases we're talking about attention-based behavior. Someone is attempting to gain attention either from the person they're bullying or from others in the environment through their bullying behavior. It could potentially be used as an escape behavior. And I suppose you could argue that there might be some self-stim. A person feels insecure or inferior to themselves by putting themselves in a higher position over someone else. Maybe that automatically makes them feel better. So it could be multiply controlled. So that's the best I can answer that. Okay, the last question I'm going to answer for you guys is, can you do this? Some of you are therapists who are already doing ABA. Some of you are parents who are just learning about it. Some of you are doctors who haven't had a lot of experience with it. But the question you might ask yourself is, well, that looks great. I really wish I could do this at home, but who am I? I'm just a mom. I'm just a dad. How can I do this? And so this last little 2-minute video is meant to show you whether or not you think you can. Let's see what it says. It's hard to hear, but when he does respond, she's saying, yeah, good job, just like her mom does. This was just him playing with his brother. We didn't set this up, they didn't even know they were watching us. Now, if this hasn't convinced you that you can do it, watch this. And she's saying, just like her mom. So I need to if an 18-month-old can do it, you can probably do it now. There was one last question that came to me, and it's a question I get a lot. I personally can be very fond of my child, and I do a lot with them, and they learn a lot. But the kindergarten and the school don't have fun at all, and he doesn't do anything there. What do I do? Well, as a person who owns a consulting service, part of what we do as consultants is I analyze the behavior, and we teach the adults in the child's environment how to implement that behavior program. We teach the parents, we get them good at home, then we try to get invited to school, and then we start to teach the school what they need to do. Now, the school may not be willing or able to do everything that we would do at home, but there are always things that we can suggest that they can really do that can make it better. Our ability to work with the schools is important in our ability to ultimately help a child. I don't have an answer because you can't force someone to do something that they don't want to do, which we just learned all the other day. The best way is to get them to want to do it. So what I would suggest is that you start using the 7 steps of instructional control with your school, with your kindergarten, and then you start reinforcing their behavior, you start giving them lots of reasons why they would want to do it as well. That's what we do, and we're not successful with every school. Sometimes we tell our parents, move your kid to a different class. Let's get out of the school, let's go find a different school if we have to. But we ultimately know that the more hours we can surround a child with good ADHD, the better outcome we're likely to see. Thank you guys for taking your time.
You had a very short time, and I thought it was a very wonderful time and really short. So you that was very other factors and very for thank you very much. We also to me, he's going to be more
Vreau să anunț în acest moment că prezentările în prima lor final. După masa de când vă ruga să mergeți în sălile de roșu, una dintre este aceasta, unde vă prezenta Jonathan, iar cealaltă sală este numărul 102 care era în comun. Este starea în partea dreaptă. De asemenea, o să vă rog pe aceia dintre dumneavoastră care aveți în pachetul